Our next honoree is Dr. Betty Jean Chatham. Dr. Chatham graduated from Georgetown College in 1947. As a student at Georgetown College, she founded and conducted the Baptist Student Union Choir. Her distinguished career began as organist at First Baptist Church in Shelbyville in 1953. She created and conducted children's and youth choirs and started both a non-denominational and interracial choir called Life Singers, made up of high school students in Shelby County. During her professional career, she taught at both Georgetown College and Kentucky Southern, and was artist in residence at both Georgetown and St. Catherine colleges. She has performed across the USA and in 18 countries for the Foreign Mission Board, the Southern Baptist Convention, and the U.S. Air Force Chaplaincy. She retired after nearly 60 years as pianist and organist at Shelbyville First Baptist Church on October 28, 2012. Betty Jean was married to the late Dr. Donald Chatham, M.D., who was a 1948 graduate of Georgetown College. They were blessed to have 5 children, 3 of whom were also Georgetown College graduates: Don Chatham, 1971, Sarah Beth Farabee, 1973, Martha Pryor, 1979, and Emily Chatham and Jeannie Burke.
The person of great influence in my life was my grandmother. My mother needed to work, and she had a good job with the Southern Railroad. And she was organist of our church, and she played for everything in town, actually, besides the church. So my grandmother was always there, and she taught me independence. She taught me to be kind to people who were not as well fixed as we were. We would take baskets of food. She taught me so many things, so many wonderful things. And she is the person who really influenced me in a wonderful way. The person who influenced me to come to Georgetown College was my mother, along with Dr. Hill and the school superintendent of the Somerset City Schools, Porter Hopkins. The 3 of them were meeting at the end of the baccalaureate sermon when Dr. Hill had been asked to do the sermon for us, and we had a real sermon, and we used God's name in vain, and not in vain, but we used His name the way it should be. And we had prayers in our baccalaureate. And they met afterwards, deciding that I was going to Georgetown. I really wanted to go to Baylor, but it was a wonderful thing that I ended up at Georgetown. I couldn't have handled Baylor. I was 17 then, and I am so glad for Georgetown College. The person at Georgetown College who influenced my life the most was Dr. Samuel Hill, the president. He used me to sing I'd Rather Have Jesus. I sang in those days as well as played the piano. And he took me around the state with him to raise money for the John L. Hill Chapel. And it did not help my grades that year, but it helped my knowing how to deal with the public so very much. And he would have me over to his house when he and Mrs. Hill would entertain people from outside of the state. And in those days, they had to furnish the food and provide the room for the guests. They were wonderful people. Mrs. Hill was a good role model for me, too. I learned so much from Dr. Hill. The fact that the faculty of Georgetown College were so hospitable to the students, and I was in several of the homes for dinner parties. And I know with Mr. Adkins, the treasurer that year, my freshman year, they would have me down to their house, and they used silver julep cups, and I had never eaten at a table with silver julep cups with the water in them. And everything she did was so artistic, and I was so thrilled with the fact that they were so friendly to me, who was a little freshman. And I was there several times, and in a couple of other homes. Mrs. Bradley, my piano teacher, was a wonderful influence on me, too. I have been connected to Georgetown College from the time I was 27. Dr. Edelman was the president, and I had been in the BSU summer program, going from town to town and playing the piano as part of a BSU, Baptist Student Union, team. And Dr. Edelman knew me because I had been at his church. He wanted to move Georgetown College to Louisville, and at first I was for this, but there had to be 3 women on the board or they would lose their accreditation. And so Mrs. Churchford, who was a very wonderful person connected through her family, her mother's family, to Georgetown College from the very beginning, and Ann Poindexter, Ann Cooey, and Poindexter Cooey, I guess it was, and she had been the registrar. So we 3, I was 27 and they were mature and very bright. And I really didn't know what was going on, but I learned little by little. And there were several schoolmen and businessmen on the board who were especially nice to me. I was a trustee for 12 years. Then I became an artist in residence for 5 years with the music department. And I did the Messiah. I played the organ for 1 year in the Messiah, and I did some other things, not a whole lot in the 5 years, but as much as they knew what to do with me. And then my husband was alumni president, so I was involved with him sometimes in going to different cities to establish alumni clubs, because the Kentucky State Baptist Board would not allow anybody to be on the Board of Trustees who was not a Kentuckian. And so there were some wonderful, wonderful men who had been very successful, who should have been, and they started under the president who stayed 5 years. Ben, I can't think of his name, and my husband loved him. He started these clubs so that these people from out of the state could be on the clubs. And that's where the answer started. And the library is the answer. But the 2 brothers started in one of these clubs before they fixed the rules so that out-of-state people could be on the Board of Trustees. I have always been connected with Georgetown College because I met my husband there, and that was a wonderful part of my life. And we were married on the campus with the May Day scenery, And we were married about where the music building is now. That was a grassy plot. We used flowers from people's yards. Everybody in the wedding was a Georgetownian. I had 6, except my 2 little sisters-in-law who were little flower girls. But everybody else was a Georgetownian. And it was a lovely wedding. Mrs. Bradley and Ollie Dale Jelly played 2 pianos. And I had taught school 1 year in Princeton, so I used them for the singing. And we had practically a concert before the wedding started. My hope, dream, and prayer for Georgetown College is that it will come up to what it should be and maybe open its doors to a few more people and remain a Christian college. We need Christian colleges and anything Christian in this world today. It has affected so many lives for the better. And it's not a perfect place. No place is perfect. But it is a lovely school still. And I pray that we will perhaps do a better job of public relations in letting people know how wonderful we are. Campbellsville College has done a wonderful job in letting people know about them, and they have grown tremendously. I pray that the music department will come back, because many of the church musicians, as well as the school musicians, are graduates of Georgetown College, and they majored in music. That I pray for. But I think already we have, my husband was the first person to be accepted by the U of L Medical School in 25 or 30 years, because they thought that the chemistry department was not good enough, and Dr. Alexander went and spent 2 hours with the board of the U of L Medical School, and because of that, they accepted my husband and the fact that he had good grades, and he laid the foundation for the other doctors who were to be. And he was a trustee for 8 years. So we were always involved in Georgetown College, and I still am as much as I can today.